from the flag stand, so we are not long away from starting off the 58th Annual Governor's Cup. You see the fans saluting the drivers, and the drivers saluting all the fans who have come out to New Smyrna to attend this race in person.
The hands out the window net for all the competitors in the field, and all the fans here on the main straightaway came to their feet to salute these drivers as they are destined to be entertained by this 200-lap event. We mentioned some of the favorites coming into this race: William Byron, Giovanni Ruggiero, Stephen Nasse, Jesse Love, Anthony Sergi, but it was Michael Atwell, George Gorham, and Jesse Dutilli who were able to capture all the attention in qualifying. How does that parlay into the 200-lap agenda that is up the road for all of these competitors? We are one lap away from kicking things off as the lights are out atop the pace car. One car ducks to the pit lane on the final parade lap. That's Trent Hennick, who's going to start 23rd. We'll see if he's able to get out in time for the green as the field is navigating their way off the second turnpike. We are just about ready to go.
Lots of drivers, lots of talent here. Championships to be decided. We have to keep an eye on Brad May and the 9 Machine starting just a little bit further back in the 7th position. He is someone that really could make his name known and would love the opportunity to beat the big stars here in the 58th Annual Governor's Cup at New Smyrna Speedway. Green flag is out, and we are underway for the beach.
Atwell able to get the jump from the pole, slid up to kind of protect himself from Gorham there. Bottom lane on the move. Jesse Dutilli on the inside in the 30, trying to get by the 10 of Gorham, the outside front row starter, while Atwell leads the first lap. And Dutilli is by for second. William Byron now working the low side on the 24 car.
Byron immediately down to the bottom. Look at George Gorham trying to block him entering turn 3, and Gorham will keep him just behind for a moment. But Byron motoring down on the inside lane as he and Gorham continue to fight for that 3rd position.
That's the best battle on the racetrack right now for 3rd. Byron on the bottom. The blue and black number 20 just behind Byron on the 24 is Anthony Sergi, while Atwell continues to lead, opening up the gap by about 5 car lengths. But from second on back, it is starting to accordion together. And the battle for second is going to intensify. Gorham gets in the back of Dutilli, and we got trouble in turn 1.
One car around in the middle of the corner. First caution flag is out here at New Smyrna, and the field will slow and return to following the pace car as we get set to go back under the yellow here. One car around, down, stuck in the middle of turns 1 and 2, stopped on the inside of the racetrack. Didn't look like that car took any damage, so will have the opportunity to right itself, get itself pointed in the correct direction, and get back going. I didn't see too much damage, though, and I don't see damage on any of the rest of the cars in the field either. A lot of people were able to check up in the middle of the corner and avoid that.
Out of our vantage point on the front straightaway, it looked like Jesse Love was trying to make a move after he started in the 8th spot and was racing in and around some of the cars down the front straightaway into turn number 1, but somehow everybody was able to avoid the spinning car.
So, I don't know if you quite call it a false start per se, but we didn't get a lot of laps in once we took the green flag. And always one of the more interesting mental aspects of a race that starts off like this, when you've got so much hype, especially for a race that hasn't been run in 2 years, and you're all excited, and you finally get the green flag, and you're getting ready to settle in, and then you get a quick yellow like this. How much does that sort of break your concentration, and how much do you have to sort of get yourself geared back up to get back after it? Because you've got 200 laps. It's not a short race here.
It certainly puts you in a precarious position as far as being able to try to find a rhythm, which is going to be so important in a race of this distance and of this measure. But it's also going to reset the potential of seeing a yellow in terms of our competition caution, being that we are now 3 laps in. And again, every 50 consecutive green flag laps is when we would see a yellow, as the car that brought out the first caution of the race, Jonathan Nee, in the flow coding number 8, brings his car to the attention of his crew.
Also worth noting that caution laps do not count over the course of these 200. So we will restart working lap 4 of 200 when we get back green flag racing, as Nee's car gets serviced and the field continues to circulate behind the pace car at New Smyrna.
While that was going on, the battle for second started to get a little bit intense between that of Jesse Dutilli in the 30 and George Gorham in the 10. We saw Gorham start on the outside when they came to the green and kind of struggled a little bit on that top lane, especially after the race leader Michael Atwell was able to cross the bow of that car going into the first corner to cement the top spot all to himself. And then after that, Gorham was on a little bit of a comeback trail to get up to second. They made a little bit of contact into turn one while the field kind of tangled behind them. And one other thing that we should mention here, Pike, just as we saw with all of the races last night, and we'll see it all afternoon, the choose option is going to be in effect for these drivers as well. The inside may seem like the preferred lane, but if you could time your start and have an edge off of turn number 2 and carry more momentum, the outside can work in a super late model.
And that was a theme that we saw across a lot of the races in the Prelude last night, and especially in the middle of turns 1 and 2 off to the exit of the corner, entering the back straightaway. There were a lot of drivers who used the outside to try and set up passes or tried to duck underneath people on the inside and cross them over on corner exit to go alongside them down the back straightaway. That corner in particular might be the raciest of the 4 here, and we will see plenty of passes set up in that spot on the racetrack over the course of 200 laps.
At the choose on the front straightaway, it was Atwell who picked the bottom, Dutilli in the 30 on the outside, Gorham in the 10 inside of row 2. Outside is going to be that of William Byron. Anthony Sergi also elected the outside. He'll be outside of row 3 with Gio Ruggiero on the bottom in the 22. Here they come back to the restart. 3 laps in the books, and we're back underway.
Atwell with the jump on the inside. Dutilli there trying to hang on the quarter panel. Can't quite do it. So Atwell to the lead. Here comes Gorham down on the bottom. Byron up high, and I couldn't tell. He got tight. Might have clipped the fence there on the exit of turn 2. Did William Byron. The front 3 begin to skate away, and Byron now has a battle with the 22 of Gio Ruggiero for 4th on his hands.
There's a little bit of damage to the right rear fender of Gorham's car after he washed up and caught the left front of the 24 of William Byron off 2. That could have been a massive accident if Byron hadn't lifted in time. It is Atwell out in front. Battle for second rages on the main straightaway.
Dutilli and Gorham door to door in the middle of 1 and 2. And Dutilli's got that top line that you have the ability to move, and he ends up tight out of turn 2 and will lose a few spots both to Gorham and to Byron.
Well, it seems like everybody is washing up the hill off of turn number 2. And if you're side by side at that point, the car on the outside is being put in a position to make some very difficult choices. And each time we have seen the car on the outside nearly catch the concrete.
Got really, really close there. And now as this field starts to string out, we'll start to see who's got speed, who will begin to make a charge up to the front, and who will have the opportunity to try and chase down Michael Atwell for the race lead. He's stretched it out now by 0.7 of a second already.
Atwell out in front of Gorham, as you mentioned, by just under 1 second. William Byron up to 3rd. Running in the 4th position is that of Dutilli, and then Gio Ruggiero, your top 5, as they come back down the main straightaway. Quick update on Stephen Nasse. Had to start shotgun on the field. He is already carving his way up through the running order. 11th the last time through. 1 spot shy of the top 10 already. Less than 10 laps into this race. There you see the 51 car continuing to climb his way further forward.
Stephen Nasse is working that outside lane, which you can do even in 3 and 4. It's not preferred, but it's definitely an option. He'll look to the inside of Daniel Webster here and then tuck back in line. But that's already about half the track position he needed to make up in the span of, 10 laps? Not a bad start for Stephen Nasse, given the way things went before the green flag dropped.
He also picked the inside lane on the last restart for the choose, so he didn't take any too major of a swing in terms of a chance by jumping up to the less populated outside the last time by. But Nasse, as Jacqueline mentioned in the hit earlier, he is very confident in this race car, and despite the problem, he is starting to make his way to the front.
Good battles with Stephen Nasse. Also a good battle developing for the 4th position between Jesse Dutilli and Gio Ruggiero. They just about banged quarter panels down the front straightaway last time by. As you get a good look at your leader, Michael Atwell, who still has that buffer. It's increased to 0.9 of a second, so he's stretching it out, and everybody else is fighting for position behind him.
Atwell clearly out in front. Here is the battle for 4th down in turn number 1. Ruggiero on the bottom, and there's Dutilli able to make that outside lane work for him in terms of a defensive measure. Gets a good launch off that second corner. Ruggiero, though, back to the power in the middle of the corner, back to the bumper, and looks low as they enter turn 1.
Gio Ruggiero has been really confident the last few weeks. Won the Winchester 400 up in Indiana a few weeks ago. Has shown a lot of speed early in this race. And I can't tell if he's actively trying to get by Dutilli or if he's just trying to pressure Dutilli into a mistake. They're both valid strategies. You can try and employ either one. I wonder if we'll get the answer to that over the course of the next 5 to 10 laps or so.
That fight continues on, and they're pulling in Anthony Sergi in the 20 car. Another Florida native making his 11th Governor's Cup start. His best finish in this race was 4th. When it came down to practice, though, he was one of the fastest cars here yesterday in the morning session, and Sergi is starting to float his way up towards the front of the field, while your leader is about to encounter a car that was on the pit lane at the start of this race. He works his way around the outside of the 17 of Trent Henrick to put him a lap down.
So Hennick goes a lap down. Atwell makes the pass. Byron's going to be there in a moment. The top 10 have all finally settled things for a moment. The best battle amongst them, Sergi and Ruggiero, and then Stephen Nasse trying to work over Michael Goddard for the 9th position.
A lap ago, Bobby Good, who was running in the top 10, white-walled the tires on his car off of turn number 4. He keeps it going. The race stays under green. Still watching this fight unfold here, as now William Byron has gotten up into the 2nd position ahead of that of George Gorham. Now we'll start to check what the margin is from the race leader in Atwell back to Byron, who is now your new runner-up. It was 9/10 of a second a lap ago, and Byron was 1/10 of a second faster that last lap.
Battle for the lead incoming, perhaps, is a driver who just came off of a championship 4 run at Phoenix Raceway in the NASCAR Cup Series, comes to the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series in the Governor's Cup, and is definitely making moves half a tenth faster than Michael Atwell that last time by. It's 8.5 tenths of a second, so it's ever so slightly coming back together, that gap between P1 and P2.
Race continues on this green flag stretch here. If the race should stay green, we would see a caution on lap 53 in terms of 50 consecutive green flag laps as things start to settle out here throughout most of the pack for the moment. The best fight is starting to materialize in what seems to be about the 4th position in a battle that won't go away between that of Jesse Dutilli in the 30 and the 22 of Giovanni Ruggiero.
I wonder if the folks at Donnie Wilson's camp have gotten on the radio to Ruggiero and told him something along the lines of, hey, wait up, we'll be okay, as we saw Anthony Sergi get way wide over in turn 1 last time by Brad May, able to get to his rear bumper, and that broke up the battle that we had between Ruggiero and Sergi. But one of those cases where I wonder if they told him, hey, look, you don't necessarily have to go past Jesse Dutilli now. You've got almost 175 laps to work with. You don't have to force the issue at this point. Let's just ride, conserve the car, and make sure we have something for the end of this race when it really matters.
Unfortunately for the race leader, Michael Atwell, he's going to encounter a couple of cars on the tail end of the lead lap that are battling for position. It's the 78 of John Kaufman, the 73 of Bobby Gordon. They'll yield to the bottom of the racetrack in turn 3, forcing Atwell to go high. And this is going to allow Byron a chance to close potentially off the corner, as the battle for the lead will start to tighten up even more.
8 tenths to 6 tenths. The lap traffic cost Atwell 2 tenths of a second that last time by. And now Byron might be able to get a toe off the rear end of Atwell's number 55 machine and may tighten up this battle for the lead even more.
Atwell and Byron continuing to tussle for position on the main straightaway, as now the rest of the field is going to start to work their way through some of the traffic that ensues, with now Byron setting up high in 1 and 2.
Also worth noting that Stephen Nasse just got around Anthony Sergi, so Nasse up to 8th after the power steering issues that plagued him before the green flag drop. He is charging back to the front in a hurry. He's the Pinellas Park, Florida native.
The gap between the top 2 about 6 tenths of a second. As they work their way down the back straightaway and into turn 3, they've got a pretty large margin over what is starting to be a 3-car fight for the 3rd position between George Gorham, the outside front row starter, Jesse Dutilli, who's 4th, and Gio Ruggiero right there, with Stephen Nasse working his way further forward, now on the back bumper of Jesse Love in what is a battle for 7th in turn 1.
Nassi wasting no time, and this is typical to who he is. Some drivers don't mind riding around the racetrack and saving their car from later. Some drivers like to control races from the front, and Nassi definitely falls into the latter camp of those two schools of thought. So I'm not shocked at all that he's made the decision to make the charge up front, maybe burn the tires up a little bit more than some of the other drivers, but get that track position back, as Jesse Dutilli was just able to pass George Gorham for third.
Dutilli and Gorham having a tussle of it as they go down to turn number 1. It's going to pull everybody kind of closer up here as Love continues to hold that spot. You saw momentarily there a look at that battle for third. Here's the margin between first and second, as Byron has pretty much been able to chew up the gap in which Atwell was able to exercise at the start of this race, but not enough in terms to be able to mend the challenge. But it is still very early with still 170 laps to go.
It's stabilized pretty consistently at just around the 0.6 of a second marker the last 5 or 6 laps. There hasn't really been much difference in the lap times between Atwell and Byron. That time by pretty much dead even, a 1915 to a 1916, so 100th of a second in Atwell's favor as we look at the battle between the 22 machine of Gio Ruggiero and George Gorham, really getting after it here for the 4th position.
The two of them almost came together at the end of the front stretch. Now Gio slides up the racetrack, almost catches the door of Gorham off 4, and they touch that time into turn 1.
They bounce off of each other. Also, keep note of the driver just behind them. Brad May in that red and white number 9 car picked up the track championship in the David Rogers Super Late Models when they took the green flag. He's just been sort of hiding in the back half of the top 10, and as one of the most experienced drivers here, runs the weekly series and the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts weekly series here at New Smyrna. This is a driver that's got plenty of skill and plenty of know-how and how you need to attack this race and whether or not you really need to push as hard as we see Gorham and Ruggiero pushing right now.
Again, it's the battle for 4th position as Gorham's car appears to be fading just a little bit after qualifying so well at the start of this race. Giovanni Ruggiero, we mentioned the fact that he captured top honors at the Winchester 400, also the 2023 Southern Super Series champion and a 2-time winner on the ASA Stars Tour. That includes the Winchester 400 victory. Now he's trying to add himself to the list of winners here at the New Smyrna Speedway, and they are threading the needle through traffic as Brad May is on the back bumper of Ruggiero now for that spot, with Stephen Nassi coming as well.
That is a proper 4-pack fighting for position. They work their way around the lap machine of Ross Francisco, and then they will come to Trent Hennick to the outside there too. Francisco now up in the groove trying to clear Hennick, and that'll bottleneck everybody behind this battle. Absolutely nowhere for Ruggiero to go.
And Gorham got a little bit loose there trying to get to the outside of Hennick, the lap car. Look at this battle for 4th on back, continuing to ratchet up here as the run goes on. It is Gorham who holds 4th, Ruggiero just behind in 5th, and Brad May in the 9. Stephen Nassi in the 51, who started shotgun on the field. Jesse Love and Anthony Sergi all part of this freight train.
Everybody all stacked up here as the lap traffic has got them together, and Ross Francisco continues to sit in the racing groove. I figured he might have pulled down here, or rather Gorham taking control of this group now that they've got space and they've got speed. Here comes Nassi to the inside of Brad May. He took a peek out the back of turn 2.
What more could be said about the charge up through the field for that of Stephen Nassi, and he is now racing around some of the heavy hitters in this field and has still been able to do quite well in terms of making that happen. Even with the potential power steering problem to start this race, Pike, it doesn't appear that Nassi has lost any confidence in the ability to wrestle that race car up closer to the top of the pylon.
My goodness, outside it was George Gorham leading this train, got all sorts of sideways out of turn 4 last time by. So wondering if he may be fighting the handling on this machine as they continue to hang out. Here comes Nassi once again to the inside of Brad May.
Nassi on the bottom of the 51, Brad May in the 9, off of turn number 2 and down the backstretch they come. Nassi now is going to get that position on Brad May. And now will set his sights on Giovanni Ruggiero to see if Nassi could crack the top 5. Less than 50 laps, less than a quarter of the way through this race. 41 in the books, 159 to go.
Stephen Nassi continuing to make his way towards the front. Next up on the list, Gio Ruggiero, who continues to battle with George Gorham. Everybody in the back of the top 5 has just been at fisticuffs with one another pretty much since the drop of the green flag, and it's allowed Atwell and Byron and Dutilli to escape. They are clear by 2 seconds over the battle for P4.
the gap between the front runners here as things continue accordion together through the traffic. As they go down to the first corner, it's still Gorham who has been able to fend off the challenge from Ruggiero, now working his way to the outside of West Burton. We did see the battle for the lead come down to about 0.3 of a second. Atwell's built it back up, courtesy of the traffic. As here comes now Ruggiero on the back bumper of Gorham, and Stephen Nassie has entered the frame as well on the home stretch. Atwell still the leader.
Can George Gorham hang on to this when you've got two of the best and brightest in super late model racing behind him? You saw Ruggiero wash up the racetrack out of turn 2 that last time by. That allowed Nassie to close up on him. Gorham will slide up top. Ruggiero has the opportunity to go underneath. Gorham will try the roll the momentum on corner exit. Ruggiero tries to pinch. They, I think, made contact once again on the entry to turn 1. Gorham doesn't want to give up the track position. Ruggiero wants all of it down the backstretch.
We've seen that so many times between these two on the front straightaway as they come to 3. Now